Emmylou Harris, born April 2nd, 1947, in Birmingham, Alabama, stands as one of the most influential and revered voices in American music. Known for her clear, soaring vocals and emotional honesty, she has spent decades moving effortlessly between country, folk, rock, and Americana, shaping the sound of each along the way. Raised in a military family, Harris learned discipline and resilience early in life, particularly through the example of her father, a Marine Corps officer and former prisoner of war during the Korean conflict. These formative experiences quietly informed the emotional depth that later defined her music. Academically gifted, as well as artistically inclined, she attended the University of North Carolina at Greensboro to study drama. But her growing love for folk music soon took precedence. Inspired by artists such as Joan Baez, Bob Dylan, and Pete Seeger, Harris felt an undeniable pull toward songwriting and performance, setting her on a path that would ultimately reshape American roots music. Finding her way through the folk revival. In the late 1960s, Harris moved to New York City, immersing herself in the creative energy of Greenwich Village during the height of the folk revival. Like many young artists of that era, she lived modestly, performing in coffee houses while juggling odd jobs to survive. These early years were marked by uncertainty, but also by growth as she learned to connect deeply with audiences through song. In 1969, she released her debut album, Gliding Bird, a project that hinted at her remarkable talent, even if commercial success remained elusive. During this period, Harris also became a mother, welcoming her daughter Hallie, a responsibility that added both pressure and purpose to her journey. Balancing personal challenges with artistic ambition was never easy, yet she persisted with quiet determination. Those formative years, filled with struggle and self-discovery, laid the foundation for the emotional authenticity that would later make her voice instantly recognizable and deeply trusted by listeners. The transformative bond with Gram Parsons. Harris's life changed profoundly in the early 1970s when she met Gram Parsons, the visionary country rock pioneer formerly of the Byrds and the Flying Burrito Brothers. Parsons immediately recognized Harris's extraordinary vocal ability and invited her to sing harmony with him, forging a musical partnership that would become legendary. Together, they recorded GP in 1973 and Grievous Angel in 1974, albums now regarded as cornerstones of country rock. Harris's harmonies brought clarity and emotional lift to Parsons' songs, while his mentorship immersed her in traditional country music. Their collaboration was brief but deeply impactful, ending tragically with Parsons' death from a drug overdose in 1973. Harris was devastated, often describing him as her musical soulmate, yet his influence became a guiding force rather than a stopping point, motivating her to continue exploring the music they loved and to carry forward the spirit of creative freedom and reverence for tradition that Parsons embodied. Stepping into her own stardom. Following Parsons' death, Harris embarked on her solo career with renewed focus and confidence. Signing with Reprise Records, she released Pieces of the Sky in 1975, an album that introduced her to a wide audience and established her as a major artist in her own right. The record blended traditional country ballads with contemporary songs, all filtered through her distinctive interpretive style. Hits such as If I Could Only Win Your Love demonstrated her rare ability to honor a song's origins while making it unmistakably her own. She followed this success with a remarkable run of albums, including Elite Hotel, Luxury Liner, and Quarter Moon in a 10-cent town. Each release reinforced her reputation for musical excellence and emotional depth. Rather than chasing trends, Harris built her career on thoughtful choices, vocal integrity, and a deep respect for songwriting, earning her both critical acclaim and lasting audience loyalty. Collaboration as a way of life. One of the defining features of Harris's career has been her generosity as a collaborator. She surrounded herself with exceptional musicians, including members of the Hot Band such as Rodney Crowell and guitarist Albert Lee, creating a sound that was both polished and deeply rooted. Her collaborative spirit extended across genres and generations, from working with Willie Nelson, Johnny Cash, Neil Young, and Bob Dylan, to later partnerships with artists like Gillian Welch and Buddy Miller. Perhaps most famously, Harris joined Dolly Parton and Linda Ronstadt to form a trio whose harmonies became some of the most beloved in country music history. These collaborations were never about ego or spotlight, but about shared musical respect. By opening her work to others, Harris helped bridge gaps between traditional country, folk, and rock, reinforcing the idea that great music thrives on connection and mutual admiration rather than rigid boundaries. Artistic risk and emotional honesty. Throughout her career, Harris has remained unafraid of artistic risk, guided by emotional truth rather than commercial expectation. Her songs frequently explore themes of love, loss, longing, faith, and redemption, delivered with vulnerability and restraint. In 1995, she surprised many listeners with Wrecking Ball, produced by Daniel Lanois, an album that embraced atmospheric textures and a more experimental sound. While stylistically different from her earlier work, it retained the emotional clarity that defined her voice, introducing her to a new generation of listeners. This willingness to evolve kept her music relevant across decades, proving that authenticity matters more than consistency of style. Harris's artistry has always reflected a deep inner life, inviting listeners into quiet moments of reflection rather than spectacle. That emotional honesty, sustained over time, is one of the reasons her work continues to resonate so powerfully. Life beyond the stage. Beyond her musical achievements, Harris is widely admired for her compassion and humanitarian efforts. She has been a longtime advocate for animal welfare, founding Bonaparte's Retreat, an organization dedicated to rescuing dogs from euthanasia. Her activism extends to causes such as disaster relief, landmine removal, and support for veterans, reflecting a sense of responsibility that mirrors the values expressed in her music. Harris has also spoken candidly about her personal life, including 3 marriages and motherhood, often describing herself with humor and honesty as a really good ex-wife. These experiences shaped her understanding of love, compromise, and independence. Rather than presenting a polished public image, Harris has allowed her life's complexities to inform her art. This openness has strengthened the bond between her and her audience, who see in her not perfection, but sincerity, resilience, and quiet strength. Reflecting on John Denver's influence over the years, Harris has spoken with deep respect about fellow musicians who shared her commitment to sincerity, including John Denver. Rather than focusing on speculation or sensationalism, she has consistently framed her reflections on Denver as those of a colleague and admirer. Denver, known for his clear voice and devotion to nature, represented a kind of authenticity that Harris herself valued deeply. Their shared musical spaces during the 1970s folk and country boom reflected a mutual belief in music as a force for connection rather than image. Harris has often noted that Denver's greatest strength was his genuineness, both onstage and off. His songs celebrated simplicity, environmental stewardship, and human kindness, themes that aligned naturally with her own artistic philosophy. Remembering Denver is less about recounting specific moments and more about honoring a spirit that encouraged artists to remain true to what mattered most. Legacy, memory, and enduring grace. As Emmylou Harris looks back on a career spanning more than 5 decades, her legacy stands not only in awards or accolades, but in influence. With 14 Grammy Awards, induction into the Country Music Hall of Fame, and a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award, her impact is undeniable. Yet what endures most is the trust she built with listeners and fellow musicians alike. Harris represents a rare kind of success rooted in humility, collaboration, and emotional truth. Her reflections on artists like John Denver serve as reminders that music's greatest power lies in its ability to preserve memory and meaning. Through loss, change, and time, her voice remains a steady presence, encouraging authenticity and compassion. In honoring those who walked alongside her, Harris also reveals the heart of her own artistry, a belief that music, at its best, connects us to one another and to the beauty that surrounds us.